the July 26, 1953 attack on the Moncada barracks of the Fulgencio Batista U.S.-backed dictatorship in Santiago de Cuba, led by Fidel Castro and Abel Santamaria as the solidarity and anti-blockade movement in New York City has done for many, many years. Our growing solidarity movement across the U.S. and Canada commemorates the fighting spirit and heroism of that generation of Cuban revolutionary youth. History definitively records the events we commemorate tonight as the spark, the origin, the launching of the great Cuban Revolution, now in its 64th year since the January 1st, 1959 triumph. Out of the jaws of a military defeat came, within weeks, months, and years, a mass people's movement and revolutionary organization, the July 26 movement, that became a political and eventually a military triumph of the armed struggle, opening the period to the Cuban Socialist Revolution. First of all, tonight I'd like to give a warm welcome to the delegation from the Cuban mission to the United Nations. Led by Ambassador Gerardo Peñalver Portal and Deputy Ambassador Yuri Gala Lopez. I'd like to give a special shout out, he's probably not going to like it that I'm doing it, but I'd like to give a special shout out to Brother Ivan Casal from the mission for his solidarity and support working with us to organize this and other events in our movement. So thank you, Brother Ivan. I want to now ask folks to rise and observe a moment of silence for 4 outstanding fighters and friends of Cuba who passed since our last event on July 22nd, 26th. First, Brother Frank Belgada from the Frente Socialista de Puerto Rico and Pro Libertad, and really every just struggle in the world, who left us last August and was a central leader of our annual July 26 celebrations and all solidarity struggles, including being with our sister, who is not able to be here tonight, our dear sister Rosemary Mealy, who was the co-chair of the historic 50th anniversary celebration in 2003 that many people here will remember at the 1199 SIU auditorium. Second, Sister Pat Fry, strongly identified for decades for her solidarity with Cuba and her tremendous example of struggle through her work in the Communist Party USA, the Committees of Correspondence for Democracy and Socialism, and a long-time 1199 SEIU trade union activist. Also, Brother Chris Che Matlako from South Africa, Secretary for International Relations and a central leader of the South African Communist Party. Over the years, Brother Chris was an ally of Cuba C here in New York, New Jersey, on many projects over many years. And finally, Sister Jane Franklin, the author of the great resource book, Cuba and the American Empire, and a longtime fighter for Cuba solidarity. So please, a moment of silence for these 4 comrades. Thank you. Frank Belgada, presente. Jane Franklin, presente. Pat Fry, presente. Chris Matalaco, presente. Thank you. In a moment, we will hear a welcome from the director of the Shabazz Center. This hallowed ground for us that we are here today, the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial and Education Center. We're always happy to do our Cuba Solidarity events here in a place for all who venerate the outstanding revolutionary leader, internationalist, and vocal defender of the Cuban Revolution, Malcolm X, and the great Dr. Betty Shabazz. Thank you to Dr. Anne Marie Weathers for your support for this great event. Let me also give a shout out to Sister Joan Gibbs, who was originally scheduled to be one of our co-chairs tonight, who was ill and unable to attend as planned. Along with Sister Rosemary Mealy, Brother Sam Anderson, and Sister Ann Mitchell, who are all out of town tonight. Joan was instrumental in our victory in passing the New York City Council resolution against the blockade. Woo! And for removing Cuba from the state sponsors of terrorism list, which is we will talk about in more detail later in the program. Tonight we gather in a period, an extended period really, of intense economic stress, disruption, shortages, and real human suffering in Cuba that is the accumulated damage and devastation that can all be connected directly and indirectly to the blockade, to the brutal blockade. That is to the bipartisan intensification of the U.S. economic and political war against Cuba, with essentially unbroken continuity from Donald Trump's White House, State Department, and both houses of Congress to those bodies and buildings under Joseph Biden. Unbroken continuity under the conditions of the pandemic even. Brutal and unrelenting because the U.S. rulers, Republicans, and Democratic leaderships alike, for now anyway, perceive Cuba as vulnerable to its continued policy of asphyxiation. We have to soberly acknowledge that there is no evidence of any shift on or concessions from the Biden and Blinken White House and the State Department or from either party's leadership on Capitol Hill. This is despite the utter continued isolation of U.S. policy hemispherically, internationally, or in domestic public opinion, despite the considerable efforts at crude propaganda, from sonic attacks to Chinese spy bases, on all this fake hyperbole. 93 city councils, trade union bodies, and other elected bodies have passed anti-embargo resolutions. Hundreds of youth, new generations of anti-blockade, revolutionary-minded youth have recently traveled to Cuba to see its reality directly, to see its achievements as well as its great challenges. So now, is Dr. Weathers here? Is Dr. Weathers here? Okay, so then we're going to move on. I'm going to introduce our two wonderful co-chairs, two veterans of our struggle over many years. First, Sister Nancy Cabrero, who's a longtime leader of Casa de las Americas, the oldest and long-standing before the revolution group of Cuban Americans that supported the struggle in Cuba. If you look at this wonderful display that was put together that covers some of the events that we organized over many years, I think Nancy was probably the chairperson of half of them, but anyway, that's not much of an exaggeration. And our second co-chair, Sister Andrea Bizio, who is an activist in Cuba City, also a Brazilian-American activist, very active in the Workers' Party struggles over many years. She's one of the voices of a wonderful program on WBAI, Voices of Resistance, which has always opened its doors for representatives from Cuba. So I'm going to turn over the meeting now to Nancy and Andrea. Thank you so much.
I'm honored to be able to stand here today celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Moncada Barracks assault and ultimately its triumph. We celebrate Fidel's leadership and his steadfast and clear focus, his determination to carry out a genuine revolution for Cuba. We celebrate the courage of the men and women who, in the spirit of Martí, launched an assault on the Moncada Barracks and initiated this powerful origin story.
Raise high the banner of internationalism. I want to say to an American that can tell you that if we struggle, we win. We freed Lula, we brought Lula back to power. With my sister, Lucy, we fought for Mel Zelaya and the Castro government to come back to Honduras. And we did that too. So you know what? Let's keep on fighting. It's an honor for me to be here and to see so many young people. You know, we need to keep the struggle going. There's a lot to do. People in Cuba are suffering, and what we are meeting is a crime because we, as taxpayers in this country, are allowing this government to do this. So, Cuba sí, bloqueo no.
Steve Clark is the editorial director of Pathfinder Press, which publishes more than 40 books by leaders of the Cuban Revolution in English and in Spanish. Steve is the author of Che Guevara, Cuba, and The Road to Socialism, and the editor of several books of speeches by Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela, and Grenadian leader Maurice Bishop. Most recently, Steve is co-authoring with Jack Barnes and Mary Alice Waters the book, The Low Points of Labor Resistance is Behind Us. The Socialist Workers' Party Looks Forward, launched in April at the ECOP office in Havana. Steve will also be speaking to us, elaborating on the 1953 event. Steve, please come forward.
Well, soon after the courageous actions in Santiago de Cuba and in Bayamo, Fidel himself recounted what had happened in his magnificent courtroom speech, History Will Absolve Me. The 160 young working people, 120 of them directly under Fidel's command at the Moncada Barracks, were responding to the Washington-backed military coup a year before by Fulgencio Batista. They aimed to spark an uprising to topple the hated tyranny. Our losses in the battle itself had been insignificant, Fidel said. 95% of our dead came after the Army's cruelty and inhumanity, after the battle was over. Throughout an entire week, Fidel said, those captured were shot and thrown from rooftops. The Moncada garrison was turned into a workshop of torture and death. Only 5 had been killed in battle. 56 were murdered in cold blood. Fidel, who had escaped on July 26th, was caught a few days later. He was put on trial with Juan Almeida, Raul Castro, and some 25 others, and they were convicted for terms of up to 15 years. From behind prison walls, Fidel reconstructed constructed his courtroom speech on little scraps of paper, and they were smuggled out in matchboxes. And as part of the nationwide campaign, the defense campaign, led by the two women Moncada combatants, Melba Hernandez and Aide Santa Maria, History Will Absolve Me was printed in more than 27,000 copies. It was sown like seeds amongst working people across the island, and in May 1955, Batista was forced to free the Moncadistas as part of a general amnesty. History Will Absolve Me became the program of the revolutionary movement led by Fidel. The program that they uncompromisingly carried out when they took power in 1959. When we speak of the people, Fidel said, we're referring to the great unredeemed masses to whom everyone makes promises, yet who are deceived and betrayed by all. The 600,000 without jobs, the 500,000 farm workers who toil in the fields for 4 months a year and starve the rest of the year without any land of their own to till. The 400,000 industrial workers and laborers, Fidel said. The 20,000 small store owners and vendors weighed down by debt. To these people of limitless courage, we were never going to say, we will give you your freedom. Rather, we said, here it is, now fight for it with everything you have. Those words and the actions that lay behind us tell us all we need to know about the kind of revolution that they were destined to make, a socialist revolution. About the Communist Party they were determined to forge and to unite. About the internationalist example that they were setting for workers and youth the world over. These combatants, overwhelmingly from the working class and poor peasants, recruited and trained directly under Fidel's guidance, were the promise of what was to come just a few years later, the July 26th movement and the rebel army. And it was a pledge not just to the Cuban people, but to those the world over. A pledge to the heroic people of Vietnam, fighting for their liberation against the brutal war carried out by Washington. To the people of Algeria, the Congo, Angola, Namibia, South Africa. To the people of Grenada and Nicaragua, who made revolutions in 1979, and Fidel said that together with Cuba, they were the three giants standing on the very doorstep of U.S. imperialism. Of the Thomas Sankara-led revolution in Burkina Faso in the 1980s. All of those who have received medical treatment and care from Cuba's internationalist medical missions, which go all the way back to the beginning in Algeria, but more recently in the face of earthquakes, in the face of the Ebola epidemic in West Africa, in the face of the COVID pandemic. And of course, what it meant to working people and to young people right here in the United States. An example of the kind of revolution that we needed to make here and the kind of working class organization and leadership that needed to be built in the imperialist United States. A few years later, on January 1st, 1959, when the rebel army triumphed, millions responded in Cuba to the call for a general strike and insurrection. Fidel, who was then in Santiago, on the far eastern end of the island, had initially planned to travel rapidly to the capital, to Havana. But he said as the rebel army columns started down Cuba's central highway, the people stopped us along the way, he said. They wanted to hear what we had to say. And so they took 8 days, and they stopped at small towns and cities all along the way. It was called the Freedom Caravan. In Santa Clara on January 6th, Fidel said, the whole town turned out today because they know that they will have the final word on all questions. They will have the final word. That is what has made the Cuban Revolution a revolution that lives and fights to this day. A revolution with the workers and peasants in power. The example that they have set that it's possible for working people the world over, whatever your skin color, whatever your origins, to fight shoulder to shoulder. Descendants of African slaves, descendants of Asian indentured labor, women and men, to fight for power, to win. And as the Cuban people have shown time and time again, to defend their sovereignty, to defend their national independence, to defend their socialist revolution against the world's most brutal empire, and what we also know will be the world's final empire. It's not going to last. The U.S. rulers aim under every Democratic and Republican president, including Trump and now Biden, is to crush the Cuban people, to overturn their revolution, and above all, to snuff out the moral and political example of the Cuban people and their revolution. But they have not succeeded, and they will not. That, too, was the message of Moncada. Tonight, we have the privilege of welcoming to New York City and hearing from Cuba's new permanent representative to the United Nations. I first want to say, and I think I can speak for all of us in this room, we want our Cuban guests at this celebration to know how much we value the tireless work of the diplomatic personnel of the Foreign Ministry who uphold Cuba's sovereignty and independence with such dignity, with such honor, and have done so ever since the first days of the revolution. We've had the privilege in recent years of getting to know Ambassador Pedro Luis Pedrosa, Ambassador Yuri Gala, who's with us tonight. Just a few years ago, Ambassador Ana Yancy Rodriguez and Ambassador Ana Silvia Rodriguez. And those of us who are a little bit older, going back in 1995 to 2003, the current foreign minister who held this position, Bruno Rodriguez. The new permanent representative to the United Nations is also the first deputy foreign minister in Havana. We're so pleased to have him here with us tonight. He was previously in previous postings Cuba's ambassador to Germany and to Russia. Join me in welcoming Ambassador Gerardo Peñalver Ortega.
Thank you. And good evening. On behalf of the Cuban mission, we have tonight with us a group of comrades from our mission. Not all of us could make it tonight, but I think that about 20-25 colleagues from our embassy are joining us tonight. Dear friends, Cuban President Miguel Díaz recently recalled before the plenary of our National Assembly of People's Power that 70 years ago, a representation of the best of Cuban youth stormed the Moncada and Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks. In the early morning of July 26th, at Gran Haciboney in Santiago de Cuba, the Moncada Manifesto was firmly read. After singing the national anthem, several groups of armed youth set out to assault the Moncada barracks, take the Palace of Justice and the Saturnino Lora Hospital in the city of Santiago. At the same time, in Bayamo, they headed towards the Carlos Manuel de Céspedes barracks. On that day, the military objectives could not be achieved, but they marked a new stage in the revolutionary struggle against Fulgencio Batista's cruel dictatorship. Those actions led by Fidel Castro and Raúl Castro pointed out the armed struggle as the main way to conquer the freedom of the Cuban people. Today, we are gathered here to honor that feat that will lead the Cuban people to the road of freedom. Today, we pay tribute to those Cuban heroes who sacrificed their youth for the greater good. Precisely because of our history, the present and the future we are building, many in the world admire the Cuban Revolution, the indomitable resistance of our people in the face of external hostility and the work of justice and humanism that we defend. Dear friends, today more than ever, the solidarity we receive from you takes on special significance, because Cuba is under heavy siege. The extremely tightened blockade continues to be the central element that defines the policy of the United States towards Cuba. The US government is dishonest when it claims to be seeking the welfare of the Cuban people, the same people it is blockading and against whom it is waging a merciless war using various unfounded pretexts. One of the core aspects of the unjust campaign against Cuba is in the area of human rights. The US government has no moral authority whatsoever to question Cuba and has little or nothing to teach due to its small human rights record. On the other hand, the United States maintains the unilateral designation of Cuba as an alleged state sponsor of international terrorism without providing credible evidence to justify this injustice. The consequences of such designation are extremely harmful for a small nation like ours. It greatly damages international financial and commercial transactions, hinders access to financial institutions, possibilities of payments and credits. In short, it is a measure that heavily reinforces the blockade against Cuba. It should not be forgotten that the US government used the COVID-19 pandemic as an ally in its efforts to increase the siege against Cuba. This included actions aimed at preventing our access to basic medical supplies such as oxygen, just at a time when the world needed solidarity more than ever. We were able to offer to the world the solidarity that Washington did not give to the Cuban people with our medical brigades in the worst moment of the pandemic. We are pleased that Cuba was able to successfully develop 3 homegrown COVID-19 vaccines as well as immunize its pediatric population as of 2 years of age and vaccinate more than 90% of Cubans in spite of the blockade. Dear friends, as is known, the government of Cuba has expressed its willingness to move towards a better understanding with the government of the United States and to foster civilized and cooperative relations based on mutual respect and without prejudice to the sovereignty of both countries. We will continue to promote and facilitate the broadest possible sympathize with the numerous sectors of this country that want to build bridges with Cuba. Even in the midst of the inhuman limitations imposed by the blockade, Cuba will never renounce its socialist system of social justice confirmed in a free and universal constitutional referendum in 2019. We have the support of many good people in the world, like you dear friends, who have been and are tireless defenders of the lifting of the blockade and the right of our people to live in peace and to decide their own destiny. In Cuba, we remain committed to those young people of the so-called centennial generation, to not disappoint their legacy and to defend the dignity of our homeland. Cuba will not give up, and we will continue to resist and overcome. Long live the Cuban Solidarity Movement in the U.S. Long live the Cuban Revolution! Thank you.
Cuba sí. Cuba sí. Hasta la vida siempre venceremos. This is her father. Anyway, I'd like to invite to the stage brother Zaid Mohammed, who is from nowhere. He is out. One second. Get excited here. I gotta go by on my phone. He is part of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. He's a poet, an organizer for the People's Organization for Progress in New Jersey. Zaid, here you are.
Brothers and sisters, comrades and friends and enemies, welcome to the Shabbat Center. And I don't say that lightly in Malcolm's spirit because, especially for those of you here for the first time, this space is built on Malcolm's blood. Right here, February 21st, 1965, in front of 400 of his people, his wife and his 4 daughters, Malcolm was slaughtered by virtue of being one of the fathers of this important epic battle to be bearers of international human solidarity, because that's what that moment called for. This no showcase place. This ain't no just rental hall. This is a place where Malcolm stood, lived, organized, and raised up the important question of solidarity worldwide and had an amazing love for the people of Cuba and the Cuban Revolution. We were just this past Monday, by the way, you should know, in this space, the question of terrorism is one of our subjects today. Lawyers for the Shabazz family had a major press conference in a fight to continue to expose the role of the U.S. government and the New York City police and their bloody, dirty, filthy hands in the assassination of Dr. X and have yet to be held accountable for what they did to our movement, to our families, to our people. We can hold them accountable. We will not get justice till we do that. But at the top of the decade, and this is the thing, we don't want to be somber in this particular moment. We're celebrating the advance of revolution today. The top of the epic decade of 1960s, September 19th, 1960, when this part of town and all of this was once upon a time called Harlem, the people's Harlem. It was Malcolm and others who were afraid of the monster of anti-communism from the state. Only Malcolm stood up and said, no, Fidel ain't want to mess with you, America. Baby, you come uptown and we're going to give you the love and solidarity you deserve. Because we are Great Fred Hampton picked up the mantle of the Black Panther Party, made it plain. He said, you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill revolution. So in that spirit thing, let me do what I was assigned to do. And I should say a shout out. So I want to shout out my sister Joan Gibbs, who's a founding member of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. Quiet as kept some 30 years ago. I want to shout out one of my comrades who's not here today, Gail Walker, the daughter of Lucius Walker. Let me tell you something about my little sister Gail. 31 years ago when we were young, my grave was red 31 years ago. We were in Cuba together, her for the first time. We were with the Venceremos Brigade. And on Mango Lane, y'all know where I'm talking about, we mapped out what became the first caravan of the now epic, bold, brave, uncompromising principle, U.S. friendship and caravan, built on that strike, city to city, town to town character that you just talked about that, right there in Mango Lane. Has been on that post, especially in the absence of a father, the great Lucius Walker. And just recently walked into the office of one Senator Menendez, the ethnic Gusano, an enemy of the Cuban people, in the state where we live in New Jersey, and took him to him and refused to be intimidated by the bullying of his office in the state and faced arrest as a matter of principle. And for those of us who are in this room, who are in New Jersey, the time has come to take this call for Cuban solidarity in the belly of the beast in New Jersey and back Menendez's racist fascists behind us, because he is not the people. He is not. So we get down like that, you know, if we don't, forgive me for going on buck wild. So now let me do this poem. When we lost Fidel, we gathered here to memorialize his epic legacy. And I was tasked with crafting this memorial praise song that I look forward to publishing soon. It's called Red Star. I want to thank IMAN and the New Jersey, New York Solidarity Committee for asking me to share and offer this very special day for all of us. Red Star, inspired by Malcolm, of course. Cuban Revolution, that's a revolution. They overturned the system. People will make the world go round. Comandante Fidel has decided that the time has come that he left us. After showing an impoverished but pretty people how wealth and power, unity and principle, courage and creativity, collective work and solidarity can transform their lives. After refusing to say uncle to that bully of empire that is Uncle Sam, after turning Cold War pawns of the Cuban people into Carlotta-minded warriors, checkmating apartheid in their own blood and battle, into Woomba-rocking raging books and agency change. After 9 decades of defiance and dignity, 9 decades, Comandante Fidel has decided that it was time that he left us. And so he did. On wings whirlwind wide, lifted by lyrics of Guillen, of Neruda, of Cortier, of Matos Paoli, of Baraka, of Cortez, of his Colombian compañero Gabriel Garcia Marquez. The man with the beard, tall eyes, and long lungs has left us. On wings whirlwind wide, flying high with a gallant green fatigue stride, guided by that white dove seeking the ultimate love from above, in pursuit of a place pain-free, disease-free, exploitation and strife-free, a place well beyond the CIA, sinister dead presidents and soon-to-be dead presidents, a place beyond casualties of the trauma of war, a cane sugar sweet place, a place of peace and eternal harvest and feast, a place where he is now a cherished new red star blazing has left us for a place of memory, the kiss and taste of eternal justice and victory, to meet and kneel before Marcel and Martí, to reunite with Che, to be received with an ovation by a column of martyrs of the Revolutionary Party. He has left us for that place that chiseled him into a cherished, brand new red star, forever burning bright in a liberated blue sky. So, in this moment, as we wring our eyes on the truth of his new absence, as we face these clear and present dangers, as familiar and as sinister as ever, we remember what we have done together with our own hands and hearts while he was with us. What we did together, no matter the obstacles or hostilities. And we say, yo soy Fidel. I am Fidel. And we continue against the tyranny and tension that is this backwards blockade and empire. We continue and we say, yo soy Fidel. I am Fidel. Against the evil of poverty and treatable disease, we snap the wrist of this order of exploitation responsible for that needless suffering, and we say, yo soy Fidel. I am Fidel. Against the rock of racism that engenders state torture, mass suffering, genocide, and death. Against the sickness of sexism that barbarically violates women and girls, deforming and stunting all human development. We continue. We say, yo soy Fidel. I am Fidel. Against the bloating of the global pharmaceutical complex, taunting the suffering of the high prices and frequency. Against the seductive mischief-making of the marketeers, against the handshaking deceit of the vampires of capital, we continue and we say, yo soy Fidel. So now that he has left us with our history and heritage of hope full in our hands, we continue to provide sanctuary from the empire's persecuted. Continue to build and fight for human development, to meet human needs wherever there is suffering. Continue to share everything we have, no matter how meager, as a matter of principle. As the profiteers cringe at our refusal to capitulate, as we sing, dance, train, and fight to their dismay and to our delight, we continue with the light of Che in our eyes. Inspired by Fidel's blazing brand new red star shining in a liberated blue sky, we continue and we say, yo soy Fidel. I am Fidel. From our boldest and most battle-born to our youngest between school and play. From our hotel workers patient with the petty of tourists to campesinos proudly working their land. From lovers strolling along the balcony to our most advanced itchings of science, revolutionary and natural. From the singing Sierra Maestra mountains to the muscular color of the countryside, we continue and we say, yo soy Fidel, yo soy Fidel, yo soy Fidel. I am Fidel, I am Fidel, I am Fidel. We continue. That's what makes the world go round and up and down the carousel, changing people's heads around. Go underground, young man. People make the world go round. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Que viva Fidel, que viva la revolución.
Thank you, Brother Saeed, for your captivating presentation. It is always electrifying. And now we will hear from extraordinary Erin Phoebe. Extraordinary because she's everywhere, and I just want to say that I appreciate her for every way that she supports Cuba, because it's all done with actions that are appreciated. Erin will speak to us about what happened at the council. Very crucial.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this wonderful celebration. Especially thank you to the Cuban delegation. We love you, we support you, and we will continue to fight for you until we end this blockade. That we started to do several years back, even before we started the Saving Lives campaign, which came out of the international conference that we had to postpone in 2020. And we started to gather a lot of resolutions. We were working towards getting a resolution in the city council against the blockade. This is even before the SSOT was a concern. So the main focus was the blockade, travel restrictions, give Guantanamo back. Well, we started with Inez Barron. And I have to say, Rosemary Mealy, who is the chair of the Cuba Sea Legislation Committee, who I wish was here today, but she's in Florida, and Joan Gibbs, who was another right hand, who did a lot of the legal and the legislative and writing up the things to submit to the city council. They went to Inez Barron, who was in the city council at the time, and said, we got to do something. So we came up with a resolution while we were sitting at the mission. Rolando happened to be the first secretary at the time. And we pushed, and it was in the same committee that this last one was in, but it went nowhere. And no matter how hard we pushed and who we called, and we sent out mailings, the DSA got involved and they sent out mailings on their list, we couldn't get it out of the committee. Well, we didn't give up. As Rosemary always said, as Maurice Bishop would say, forward ever, backward never. So we continued to fight. So we got Charles Barron. Rosemary went and she did her thing and she would not give up and she did not stop. And Charles Barron, Okumali, and several others said, we're going to help you this time. So they met with the Cubans as well, who, when you hear the plight that Cuba is in for a first-class medical organization that they have created to be unable to provide the care that its people need because they can't get medicine or the raw materials to make the 80% of the medicines that they make is horrendous. It's horrible to have 3 vaccines that you can't distribute because you can't get syringes. It's outrageous. So right now, the medical system is like at a breaking point. They need to have raw materials. They need supplies. They need to get off the SSOT list, and they need an end to this damn blockade. But Charles Barron heard us. And Charles Barron, who went to Cuba, one time, I think with Rosemary, said, listen, by all means, I think we're going to see a short video on this of the count. With Charles Barron, Ogunwale, the 7-12 movement, the DSA, the Communist Party, everybody got together, and somehow it was in the same committee, but this time with a lot of pushing from progressives, from everybody, we got it through. And that was monumental because the city council in New York City is not quite the same as the city council other places. It's, it's built to fail. It's built to make it as difficult as possible, to move as slowly as possible. But after he met with Yuri a few times and he spoke to the Cubans, we knew what had to be done. Well, so did Charles and so did Al-Mawali. And Al-Mawali managed to get the SSOT in the original resolution that we had done, which was amazing because it was so necessary. It was such wonderful timing. Just a month before, Washington had come through. And believe me, I'm on the resolution committee, and we were like, oh God, every day it was like, oh, and Detroit got one, and Cleveland, Ohio, and everybody else but New York. But we did it. And this time we finally did it, and it was fantastic, and it was because of all of the people that helped us. Jacob Bruckner, Molly and Patrick from the DSA, Vincent, many people. So at this point now, I'd like to introduce, are we going to show the video now?
without passage to the full city council, but it was blocked in committee by the former Speaker of the New York City Council, Corey Johnson. Councilmember Inez Barron did diligently and collectively with others struggled to get that passed, but it was blocked by, again, the former Speaker, Corey Johnson. And as Councilmember Charles Barron took over, we reintroduced it with the help of, as we said, Rosemary, Joan, Ike, and the Cuban Coalition and the ambassadors to push to have that bill put before the city council. It was an arduous task. We faced some difficulties. We had to fight each and every day. We had to make calls. We had to rally people. We finally got a conference with the Speaker of the new City Council, Councilmember Adrienne Adams, and she agreed to allow it to come out of committee, which is most important because, again, the Speaker has that power to block anything that she does not want to come to the City Council for a vote. So that was a arduous task. It was right there every day, making sure that the Councilmember, Barron, and Omawala were on point, doing their gig, and again, with a lot of effort, a lot of phone calls, and just campaigning and fighting as true revolutionaries do for what we believe in, to say that this is important. We must show solidarity with the Cuban Revolution, those who have sacrificed much to give the world an example of what it is to be self-determined, what it is to fight for the true justice of humanity, that they have exported their knowledge, their even giving out their lives to go all over the world with the medical brigades, the other initiatives they have instituted in solidarity with working and oppressed people throughout the world. We said it is imperative that we've got to fight to have that bill passed. And again, it was not easy, but nothing is easy. Freedom is not easy. We have to struggle and fight for everything that we have. And last month, with the help of the City Council, it was passed by a unanimous voice vote. And then afterwards, it was passed, 43 council members voting to have that bill passed by the New York City Council. And it is, as was stated, most importantly, stated that Cuba has to be taken off of the list of state sponsors of terrorism, which was paramount and which was fought diligently by all. And again, what we say is that we want to commemorate the anniversary of the Mercado storming of the barracks, because that, as they say, lit a spark, a prairie fire, which went over all throughout Cuba and has reverberated throughout the world to this day, where people are practicing and yearning for self-determination, as the Cubans are an example of no matter how small you are, if you fight and if you believe in what you say you believe in, if you believe that what you and your comrades and your society and the masses of people say is what you believe in, and you fight for that, you will win. It won't, again, be easy. It'll be difficult, but in the end, when we fight, we will win. And that is what we, as a Civil Approach movement, always take from the Cubans. As our chairman, Michael Obama, said, they helped us in the 1990s when we were just getting into the international arena in regard to how to be a diplomatic force to try to shape the discussion, as they have just demonstrated with getting this resolution passed in the City Council. It's, again, something that we value very much, and we like to just commemorate and celebrate and be part of that, because as was stated 50 years ago, when Africa called, Cuba answered. They provided the bodies. They provided almost 300,000 soldiers over a couple of years to help liberate all must answer and support them in the struggle, and as we say in the 7-12 movement, freedom or death. Long live the Cuban Revolution. Long live the Cuban Revolution. Cuba sí. Cuba sí. Cuba sí.
I'm sorry. Molly and Patrick from DSA and Jacob from the CP who helped so much during this struggle as well, and getting members and doing a lot of the work and doing the things that were necessary. I wanted to say Ann Mitchell, who was also part of the Cuban C committee, is unable to be here. Joan Gibbs, who was instrumental, was not feeling well, or she would be doing this role right now. And Rosemary Mealy. We could never have done it without that team. They were the ones in the mission that year that demanded that Cuba C Coalition have a legislative committee, and they were the heart. And you're the backbone.
Thank you, Erin. Compañeras y compañeros, my name is Molly Moser, and I'm a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, and an elected leader of the organizing committee of New York City DSA's Anti-War Working Group. First, I must say what an absolute honor it is to be invited to speak here on behalf of my organization in the company of so many distinguished fighters for peace, justice, and liberation in this country and around the world. Since 2019, my organization has sought to engage at every level, national, state, and local, on a strategy with the razor focus. Unite all who can be united to put an end to the criminal blockade of Cuba. Since then, and with the help of our allies in the National Network on Cuba and the New York, New Jersey Cuba C Coalition, we have marched, we have educated, we have written letters, we have made calls, we have pushed our elected officials, we have planned solidarity trips, and we have passed city council resolutions. We've joined with the network of heroic allies to say, in one voice, this is the generation that will see an end to the war on Cuba. This is the generation that will see peace and solidarity, and this is the generation that will see an end to blockades, bans, and all other rotten tools of hate and intolerance. DSA stands in solidarity with the Cuban people. DSA stands in solidarity with all who wish to fight for hope and freedom against the greatest odds. And DSA is here to fight until we win together. And as a final note, I'm extremely excited to share today, DSA will be holding our very first member trip to Cuba this fall. Every time someone from the U.S. travels to Cuba, it kicks a brick out from the foundation of the blockade. A policy designed to separate and alienate people can't long endure when people build relationships across national barriers and find love, empathy, and shared struggle. Thank you.
Hello, comrades. My name is Jacob Buckner. I am a member of the Young Communist League and Cuba City. I was proud to be a part of the coalition that helped pass the New York City resolution to remove Cuba from the state-sponsored terrorism list and to end this vicious blockade imposed on Cuba by the U.S. Both resignations have always been unfounded and cruel, preventing Cuba from accessing basic necessities, such as food and supplies. But even with these challenges, we continue to support and be inspired by Cuba's socialist path, seeing the country's groundbreaking accomplishments, such as developing life-saving diabetes medicines and lung cancer vaccines. Cuba does not export terrorism. It exports doctors all over the world. instead of profit and greed. The passing of this resolution also represents the important role the youth of the United States plays in the Cuban solidarity movement. Since the 1959 revolution, Cuba has invested in its youth by providing free literacy and medical programs, and by the youth taking lead roles within the revolutionary process in its government. So, it is our responsibility as U.S. youth to fight alongside Cuban youth and experienced veterans of the Cuban solidarity movement and build a network of solidarity. The interests of Cuba's future and its socialist path is intertwined with the interests of our youth here. To have an opportunity to create a bridge and learn from one another, exchange developments and cultural ideas. This resolution is an important step toward unclenching the fist of the U.S. blockade on Cuba. I'm proud to have helped pass this important resolution and to continue to work alongside Cuba. Long live the revolution.
Long live the revolution. Hasta la victoria siempre. So, high-performance kids, and forgive me for saying kids, but I'm in a kid mode today. I'm honored to be here with you guys. You are the future. Carry on. We need you. Cuba needs you. Please do that. Anyway, continue on. I would like to invite solidarity from the rest of the world. Local. Make sure. Local Juanita from the Mapuche tribe.
Mari Lamien, Mari Mapuche. Un saludo de mi pueblo, nación mapuche, a todas las autoridades que están aquí cubanas. Hermanos, vecinas de esta mapuche, un abrazo, ese abrazo revolucionario que tenemos los pueblos, que somos torturados por nuestra libertad. Vengo de Chile, de mi pueblo, nación mapuche. Y vengo a decirle a todos ustedes un poquito la historia de mi pueblo, nación mapuche, que está en el país de Chile. Yo como mapuche, soy la única mapuche, soy una sobreviviente del régimen dictador de Pinochet. Soy una sobreviviente y defiendo ciegamente nuestra nación mapuche, en la cual digo, somos torturados hasta nuestro medio ambiente. Nos quitan el agua, los grandes, nos tienen el ecosistema para ellos, para sus negocios, sin ningún respeto a nuestra...
Voy a tener que hacer un resumen.
No, sin problema.
I'm going to have to do a summary because we weren't expecting to translate now. So she's saying she's a victim of what's been the torture and the oppression in Chile. She's part of the Mapuche nation there also, and is speaking for all those that have been victims of the dictatorship.
Soy la que defiendo y ando por todo el mundo defendiendo mi medio ambiente.
I travel through the whole world defending our environment.
El medio ambiente que nosotros todos merecemos como seres humanos.
The environment that all human beings deserve.
Nuestra madre tierra necesita que nosotros como mapuche sigamos cuidando nuestra tierra, nuestro medio ambiente.
As Mapuche and everybody, we need to defend our Mother Earth and to defend the environment.
Desde la dictadura de Pinochet, todavía nosotros, nuestro pueblo mapuche, sufre en este minuto todavía militarización.
I remember when Fidel Castro came to Chile.
Fue invitado por nuestro presidente Salvador Allende Bosser.
He was invited by our president, Salvador Allende.
Y dijo, desde aquí, basta ya de explotar tanto,
I want to say here, enough exploitation.
tanto nuestra tierra y solamente por los cochinos pesos, digo yo, por favor díganlo así también, por los cochinos pesos torturan a nuestro medio ambiente, que sin esa naturaleza no podemos sobrevivir. A nosotros en este minuto nos tienen sin agua, mi pueblo nació en Mapuche.
I want to say enough already of the pigsty and contamination of our environment, the exploitation of our environment, of the lands of the Mapuche.
Entonces, para terminar, desde mi pueblo nació Mapuche, de esta luto Mapuche, guerrera, huaychafe, de mi pueblo nació Mapuche.
And I want to express my greetings from the Mapuche people.
Basta, Estados Unidos que tenga la guerra económica contra Cuba. Basta que también con el pueblo mapuche. Basta la guerra de Estados Unidos que tiene la economía contra Cuba.
Enough of the U.S. blockade of Cuba. Enough already of the oppression of the Mapuche. Enough of the economic war of the United States against Cuba.
Ahora solamente quiero pedir un gran favor. Nosotros como mapuche no aplaudimos, como lo están haciendo ahora, yo también aplaudí porque sí me siento, en este minuto también me siento cubana, ¿qué tanto?
And I also want to ask you one favor. As a Mapuche right here tonight, I also feel like I'm a Cuban.
Nosotros no aplaudimos, entonces nosotros como mapuche yo voy a dar mi fanfarria y ustedes me ayudan a gritar lo que solamente cree así, ya, y yo lo hago con mi cuntrum, que mi cuntrum es el alma mapuche, por eso es que estoy aquí. Un abrazo revolucionario a todos los cubanos.
And I want you to chant with me. My Mapuche chant with the drum.
Ya.
Muy agradecido con ese saludo. We are so thankful for this solidarity from Nunca Juanita of the Mapuche tribe in Chile. Thank you very much. This event would not be complete without the solidarity of our sister island de Puerto Rico. I'd like to welcome Alegna Cruz, Secretary of the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, New York Junta. Alegna Cruz, pase por favor.
Qué hermoso público, mira eso. Gracias a todos de nuevo por estar aquí. ¿Me escuchan?
It's been a very beautiful evening, and thank you very much. It's great to be here tonight.
Son 70 años del asalto al cuartel Moncada y los estamos celebrando con nuestros hermanos cubanos.
It's been 70 years since the assault on the Moncada barracks, and we're celebrating it together here with our Cuban brothers and sisters.
Son 70 años de dignidad frente a tantas presiones imperiales.
It's 70 years of dignity in front of so many imperialist pressures.
El movimiento 26 de julio en 1953 hizo aquel asalto al cuartel Moncada y esa fue la acción que inició el fin de una época.
It was the July 26, 1953, when the assault to the Moncada barracks, and that was the action that began the end of an epoch.
Esa acción, a la cual se une todo el pueblo, marcó para siempre la vida de las personas de aquella era.
And that action which united a whole people, marked forever the life of the people of that night.
Ahí surgió la magia. Cuando todo el pueblo se unió, porque se dan cuenta que no solo era por ellos, es también por sus hijos y es por el futuro de la patria.
And that's when the magic began, when they realized that they weren't fighting just for themselves, but they were also fighting for their children and for the future of their home.
Quiero citar las palabras de nuestro comandante, perdón, del líder de la Revolución Cubana, Fidel Castro, expresadas en la celebración del 20 aniversario al asalto a Cuba.
And I want to quote the words of our commander, the leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, that he expressed on the 20th anniversary of the assault on Moncada.
El Moncada nos enseñó a convertir los reveses en victoria.
Moncada taught us to convert reverses into victory.
No fue la única amarga prueba de la adversidad.
It wasn't the first bitter test of adversity.
Pero ya nada pudo contener la lucha victoriosa de nuestro pueblo. Cierro la cita.
But nothing can stop the victory of our people. End of quote.
Desde Puerto Rico y desde cada uno de los corazones de las personas que estamos aquí presentes, vemos como hoy, a 70 años después,
And from Puerto Rico, but also from the hearts of every one of us that are here today, we see how today, 70 years later,
de aquella gesta heroica, Cuba enfrentó un bloqueo de 61 años.
and we see how 70 years later, after that initiating of the struggle, Cuba confronts the blockade. 61 years is causing incalculable losses.
Pérdidas incalculables causa ese bloqueo. Pero aún así, ahí está nuestra hermana Cuba.
But even with those losses, our sister Cuba is still here.
Dándonos ejemplo con todas sus buenas acciones en todos los momentos de crisis de otros países.
Giving us their example in every action, in every moment of crisis of other countries.
Nuestro apoyo y solidaridad con Cuba es un principio de vida que nos une a través de la historia.
Our support and solidarity with Cuba is a principle of life that unites us across history.
Y más en este momento donde ambas naciones, el invasor nos estrangula.
And in this moment where it's present, where both nations face the attempt by the invader to strangle us.
Con la unión de personas como todas las aquí presentes, que están dando la mano unidas,
With the union of all of us that are here present in justice for Cuba,
sé que vamos a salir adelante.
I know that we're going to move ahead.
Reafirmamos que el movimiento 26 de julio es para nosotros un ejemplo heroico.
And we reaffirm that the movement, the 26th of July movement, is for us a heroic example
De valor y sacrificio y siempre será recordado en Puerto Rico.
of courage and sacrifice that we will always remember.
Que vivan los héroes del movimiento 26 de julio.
Long live the heroes of the July 26th movement.
Que viva la revolución cubana.
Long live the Cuban
Y
Revolution.
que viva Puerto Rico libre.
Long live free Puerto Rico.
Long live solidarity. Thank you so much. It's so hard to follow. We talk about Puerto Rico all the time in the program as we talk about Cuba. And Puerto Rico is independent, needs to be respected. This country needs to stop with interventionism. Live and let's live. Let's take care of business here. That's where my next mayor will need to go. Anyway, following up, I would like to invite you to ask the National Network of Cuba, Carla Walsh.
Thank you so much for this wonderful event. On behalf of the National Network of Cuba, I would like to extend greetings to everyone here and
to the Cuba Sea Coalition and to the Shabazz Center for hosting us tonight. It's been incredible to listen to all the speakers and hear about all the different forms of work that are going on in solidarity with Cuba. On June 22nd, when Gail and Aleja and I were released from jail after being arrested in Menendez's office, one of the first pieces of news that we heard was that the New York City Council resolution had been passed, which was amazing to hear. And to me, what this really shows is that for our movement to succeed, we need to have this strong, united front that everyone here tonight has been talking about. We need to be employing a wide range of tactics and forms of struggle to fight this blockade, whether we're in our city councils, in Congress, or in the streets. And tonight, being in the Shabazz Center, we remember how Cuba has always been in solidarity with revolutionaries in the U.S. And in the Moncada barracks attack, the weapons that were used to kill the young martyrs fighting for Cuba's freedom, those weapons were supplied by the U.S. And even though the Cuban Revolution has been victorious, we are still fighting that same political, economic system that was exploiting Cubans for so long, because they have simply moved their headquarters from Havana to Miami and to D.C. And that is where we now need to be fighting this enemy and removing Cuba from the state sponsors of terrorism list and fighting to end this blockade. So last time I was in New York at the same center for the conference in March, that is where NNOC launched our campaign to get Cuba off the list of state sponsors of terrorism list. And we've seen how far that campaign went and how far our ideas can go when we set out plans of action, when we coordinate across so many different groups and parts of society. We had really successful protests on June 25th, thanks to a huge group of people from New York who came down and people from around the country and across the world who protested to get Cuba off the list. And we'll be planning out the next steps of our Off the List campaign and all of our efforts to normalize U.S.-Cuba relations, to end this blockade, not just in our lifetimes, but in the next few years. And so I invite you all to come to NNOC's next annual meeting. It will be this October, the 13th to the 15th at University of Massachusetts, Boston. We're really excited to be putting together a program with the Latin American Studies Institute and the Africana Studies Department at UMass Boston. And we're really encouraging people to come in person. There will be the Boston Pan-African Forum as part of this event, as well as strategy sessions among Cuba Solidarity organizers, planning out the next parts of our campaign, sharing strategies, really putting words into action, and we'll also have public educational components of this weekend. So I think that's all I have to share, but I hope to see you in October. I know I'm talking to New York people, but I came from Boston to come to this, so I think we should normalize friendly relations between Boston and New York as well. And I hope to continue supporting all the amazing efforts of Cuba Sea, and I encourage anyone interested in getting involved in NNOC's work to check out our website, check out our social media, and we will be going to Cuba again next year for the 2024 International Mayday Brigade. So if you're starting to think of your next trip to Cuba, I encourage you to check out our website and fill out the interest form to join us on that brigade. So thank you so much, and Viva Cuba! Viva!
Many young faces in the audience that I am invigorated by your presence, and I too appreciate every effort that you are all making to help Cuba, to help this cause, to create a movement that is about lifting that blockade. And I hope and I pray that you will see it through, that we will see it through, that we will be the generation that sees this happen. so that the money earned from raffling these can go towards events such as this one and everything else that needs money sometimes to support whatever event and whatever activity. So these are of Albizu Campos, nationalist hero of Puerto Rico, Pedro Albizu Campos. This is the Puerto Rican flag with the image of Pedro Albizu Campos as well. They were done by an Argentinian named Poli Zeplowodsky. And in an artistic exchange between him and my husband, who's also an artist, this is how they came to be a part of our home for so many years. And now some lucky person is going to be able to take these home. We are selling raffles for $5, 1 for $5, and 3 for $10, okay? So if you're feeling lucky, and even if you're not, you know the money's gonna go towards something that's good, right? And noble, right? So we hope that everyone here will participate. The raffles will be sold by, there she is. Okay, tell us your name. Let's all just twist our spines, which have been facing one direction.
Hello. Hello, tell us your name, please. Yo me llamo Jean. Se llama Jean. Jean va a vender los boletos. She will be selling the raffles at $5 and 3, remember, for 10. Okay? And at some point shortly, so that people are still here before you leave, we will announce the winner. Okay? So we have actually come to an end. You've been a lovely audience. And thank you again for being here and celebrating this wonderful event that took place 70 years ago. Our Cuban hermanos y hermanas have set up a mojito station in the back. Because, as I said, this is a celebration in Parado País. Así que, afterwards, we will move to the back and have a mojito and continue with some music.
We're also an area people can dance. We have mojitos, excellent mojitos.